Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm so happy you are here joining us today because today we are connecting with a really, really wonderful, beautiful human being. Lauren Peterson is someone that I had the privilege of getting to know a couple of years ago during an event for Yoga Gives Back. And since then, we've traveled to India together with Yoga Gives Back as ambassadors earlier this year, visiting all of the non-for-profit sites. But Lauren is really a gem. Sometimes I think as Ashtanga Yoga practitioners, we think all of the famous teachers out there are online or teaching internationally, but Lauren Peterson is really a foundational teacher in the Ashtanga Yoga community, especially in the Los Angeles and Malibu area. She started practicing yoga in the 80s and dove headfirst, full speed ahead in the 90s, assisting Chuck Miller for over 10 years, practicing asana at a very advanced level, 3rd series, 4th series, even learning some 5th series. She started her career as a dancer, and that led to acting, which she still enjoys doing to this day. And in her spare time, she donates much of her time and energy to Yoga Gives Back, as well as other organizations that are helping individuals, such as the Monte Nindo Eating Disorder Center, where she helps teach women the discipline of yoga, some of the teachings and techniques that come from yoga while they are there struggling with eating disorders. She has also been featured in Yoga Journal magazine, as well as on the television series Healing Quest. She's just amazing. So I can't wait for you to meet her. And if you want to meet her in person later this year, you can find her teaching on the retreat that Yoga Gives Back is hosting in Japan, as well as during a class, a 3-hour yoga retreat class on November 9th, which will be happening in LA, and it's the gala retreat for Yoga Gives Back. You can buy tickets and support Yoga Gives Back and join Lauren as well as several other teachers during this amazing class and get your ticket to come to the evening gala. The evening gala will be happening on Sunday, November 10th, and it will be from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's a wonderful celebration of the work that Yoga Gives Back does, as well as a Namaste Award will be given to Belinda Carlisle for all of the work that she has done in supporting Yoga Gives Back, and also as co-founder for Animal People Alliance. So it will be an incredible event. I hope to see you there in person, November 9th and 10th in Los Angeles. And you can meet Lauren in person during this time. So come support Yoga Gives Back, meet Lauren, come hang with me and Russell, and I can't wait to see you. I'm really looking forward to this time. It's such an amazing celebration each year with Yoga Gives Back and raising money to support the incredible work and the non-for-profit organizations, the NGOs that are on the ground in India, really making a huge difference for women and children's lives. So without further ado, let's hear about Lauren's stories, and some of them you're going to love. There's some special celebrity anecdotes near the end, so be sure to listen all the way through. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host, Harmony, and I'm here today with Russell Cates.
Just before we got on, our guest today asked if I had ever done yoga before. And I wanted to say that I don't know if I actually have. I know that I've certainly touched the light fantastic, but I really think that was the acid. One thing I will say is that I did do the yoga series as prescribed to me by Guruji. I did it for 30 years. And then I thought he did say that was probably about enough. So that's it for me. 30 years is enough. Whole life lasting.
You're just basking in the residue now?
It feels good.
Well, our guest today is the beautiful Lauren Peterson. Hello, Lauren. How are you?
Hi, Harmony and Russell.
You look like maybe you've done Ashtanga yoga for going 40 years?
I've practiced Ashtanga probably about 30.
Oh, really?
Let me think. Because I started yoga in my late 20s. I didn't get into yoga till my late 20s.
I was a teenager. Yeah.
I was a dancer first, but came into it, got into kind of really mellow asana. First started with Iyengar yoga, actually.
Nice.
As you do.
And then I found Ashtanga. And after the first primary series class, which was a lead class, I couldn't pick up my arms.
Oh, yeah. So many push-ups.
All those chaturangas. And, coming from dance, I had some flexibility, and I think my legs were fairly strong because I used to jump. But yeah, it was, okay, I need to be here for a while. I need to be doing this for a while.
But you were professional. You're a professional dancer.
I was a professional dancer, yeah. I started with everything. I started with tap dancing, actually.
Oh, fun.
And then I got into, it was actually my tap teacher who first sent me to an audition to do the summer program with San Francisco Ballet Company when I was a teenager.
Amazing.
And I got into that, which was kind of surprising. I was doing ballet. My first class was a tap ballet class. Then I went to a really good tap teacher and a really good ballet teacher. That kind of started it. Then I ended up being pushed onto a ballet track.
Yeah, because you definitely have the ballet look.
I was at School of American Ballet, which is the feeder school for New York City Ballet Company.
Yeah.
This is way back in the late 70s, early 80s. The really cool thing is, I was a teenager, but Valentin was still alive, and he would roam the halls, and his company members would take class with us. Baryshnikov was in the company one of the years I was there for a couple of years, and Gelsey Kirkland would take class with us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I just got shivers.
And then they would rehearse in our studios.
It's incredible.
Our studios. I haven't been there in years, but that was pretty cool. And they would leave the door open and you could watch. But I remember Baryshnikov would take Stanley Williams' class with us. And, on stage, you'd see him do 11 rotations.
Yeah.
And in class, he would do a single pirouette. And of course, we were all watching. But it was perfect.
Yeah. I just need to practice one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so amazing. That really takes me back to ballet years thinking about that. Dancing on my grave.
Did you start as a dancer?
Yeah, I started as a ballet dancer, and that was my dream, childhood dream, teenage dream. And I remember reading Gelsey Kirkland's Dancing on My Grave.
I read that too.
I must have been 13 or 14.
Harrowing.
What a book. Incredible.
What's interesting about Gelsey, also, I was for a bit before I went to New York when I was a teenager, I was kind of an intern with, not fully company member, but I was studying with the LA Ballet Company. And Joanna Kirkland was a member of it, her sister.
Yeah.
She was the star of it.
Yeah. Amazing.
But Gelsey, true to form, we had strict rules about what we could wear in class. You had to wear certain color leotard and tights and all that, and limited leg warmers. She would basically wear a trash bag on her, rubber pants. Do you remember those old rubber? You're younger than I am, but the rubber pants that people would wear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just made people hydrated.
Yeah, the rubber pants.
Yeah, but she would wear all this stuff on her tiny little frame.
Just trying to sweat off that extra 0 pounds.
Yeah. And then when you read the book, you see her side of those years,
know? Yeah. Tortured.
Mm-hmm.
Tortured. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What an incredible beginning to a career, just immersed in the heart and soul of ballet at that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was there for a few years. And one of those years I was living in a woman's rooming house. And my roommate was also a dance student. So I was immersed in ballet. We had like 2-3 classes a day, and I was living with a ballet dancer. I was also working at a yogurt shop, and somebody came in and mentioned Herbert Berghoff Studios. I don't even know, which is an acting studio. And part of me was like, I have to do that. I wasn't thinking about being an actor. And I would go down to Broome Street, down to the Village, and I would study at HB Studios over the years. I would take like 1 or 2 classes a semester.
Yeah.
And just loved being around a different kind of insane people, you know?
Yeah.
Like the actors were a different sort of insanity than the dancers.
Yeah, it's funny.
We were all like type A insane artists. But yeah, I love that. And I look back on that training there, and it kind of set me up because I do acting as well.
But what drew you back to LA after all of that time in New York?
I was in New York for a few years and just wasn't sure I wanted to be on the ballet track because, like I said, the first thing I got into was tap dancing, and that was from watching musicals.
Yeah, there's a very different vibe between tap dancing and ballet.
And it was just kind of like, I was on a scholarship in LA too at the Los Angeles School of Dance. With Sally Whalen was my teacher there. And for example, when I would be there during the year, come home for the summers and decided not to go back, a woman actually said to me it was like a sin because it was God's gift that I had to go into the ballet world. But I also had a bout of anorexia. I stopped eating when I was in New York. I was really restricting my eating and dropped weight really fast. Fortunately, when I came back and decided not to go back, which was a hard decision because it's a really hard school to get into.
Yeah, totally.
I was kind of we had Dramalog in those days, which was this pre-internet. You would look in the back of this magazine, this called Dramalog, for acting gigs or dancing gigs, any kind of open calls you could go to. And I went to this thing for a dancer. Long story short, I ended up getting a job to dance in Japan for the first time. And that was like 1980 or so. And when I was in Japan, I ended up being there on contract for 4 months. I don't know, the eating weird stuff, the restricting kind of fell away because I went and I had all these like rules. I wouldn't do caffeine. I wouldn't do sugar. I had all these rigid things. And they were feeding us at the place we were working. They would give us food. We were doing a weekly TV show and they would give us bento boxes. I'm not like a model type out here, but in Japan, I guess I was. I did a lot of print work there. Mind you, it's the 80s, a long time ago. And every job I would show up for, you would sit down first and they would give you a cup of coffee and a little piece of cake. So I just relaxed. And getting out of the environment of certain family things that were going on and the dance world cured my eating disorder.
Yeah.
Just living in another culture made me realize what a narrow view of the world I had in my little family life and in the ballet life. And I was like, there's a lot more to life than this.
Yeah, it's so interesting, that idea of how our patterns get so triggered by our surroundings. And when we are taken out of our context, we almost don't know who we are anymore. And you have to redefine yourself and rediscover yourself. And so sometimes that is exactly the reset you need in order to let go of the personality, and it opens you up to recognizing that actually it's not fixed.
Yeah, we're like these raw diamonds, and the little facets that you carve out show the beauty. So if you're not making yourself fully faceted and seeing all points of view, you're not as beautiful as you can be.
I like that. Yeah.
You put yourself into the head of someone else and you have to try to find empathy for that character. And it's finding the parts of you. And I remember discovering this in acting class in New York first. I was like, oh, wow, I can tap into all this pain and stuff, but it's a safe place to do it through this character.
Yeah. It gives you that freedom to explore these different parts of yourself, these different aspects or emotions or personalities that don't seem acceptable in everyday life.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you sit around with your family and there's just thousands of years of abuse that have led to this event. And you're all just sitting there
Eating pumpkin pie.
And you go back into your little voting booth and you vote how you want. But like you go back to dinner and there's so little can really be acknowledged in that environment because people are just trying to play nice and just suck it up. And maybe mom says something that gets under your skin, but it's gotten under your skin 10,000 times. You're just like, yeah, mom. And then you go back to your yoga practice or your art practice, whether it's dance or theater or painting or the yoga that we do. And it's all there. Every single samskara is all wrapped up in every single decision that we make in that environment. If you access it authentically, it can sort of flower into something beautiful. I don't even know if that's true, though. Maybe if you hide it, it can come out as rage and then be interesting.
It would be interesting, but maybe not healthy.
You know, you look at Bobby De Niro and you think maybe all that rage is just what he needed.
Anger management.
Yeah.
I got into yoga just before I got pregnant. My son is now 33. And
A young man.
he's a young man. But I remember really specifically coming from practicing with Chuck Miller. Chuck Miller is who I consider my teacher. And getting into the Ashtanga practice and taking the tools of learning to be present. Because that is what yoga is to me. Being present and listening. It's acting too, honestly. When you're working with a partner in a scene, you memorize, you do the background stuff, and then you just try to be present. But I remember taking those tools to being a parent. And you have a son, right?
Yeah.
And just telling myself, I'm going to be present. I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to try to take in what he's doing and answer him. And then they get so much more from you than if they drone on and you're not really there for them.
Yeah.
So it's a huge life lesson, but I definitely refined that by getting on my mat.
But that's beautiful because it's not then so much about necessarily unwinding the cords and roots of who you are. It's just being there for it.
And that is ever changing, isn't it? You know, we know when you do a practice that is a set sequence like we've all done, you see how much your body changes daily and then gradually over time. You know, at certain points, you're getting stronger. Before I got into Ashtanga, I did a workshop, and I remember the teacher, Paul, Yin Yoga. I can't think of his name now.
A yin yoga teacher named
Yeah,
Paul.
Paul, the famous one who like created yin yoga.
Anyway, and he did crow pose, Bakasana. And I thought, well, I'm never going to do that. And then you're doing third series and you're doing like a string of arm balances. I never thought I'd do anything like that. So gradually you watch your body get stronger. And then I'm 66 now. You gradually see yourself losing certain things as well. And it's about just being present with what is.
Yeah, I love that. I think this is something that a lot of practitioners really struggle with and even fear, like younger practitioners fear losing postures or losing the practice. And so I'm curious because you've gone into fifth series over your sort of like arc of your,
I was shown the first 5 poses of fifth from Richard Freeman. I can't do most of them. I probably can't. The first one I can't do, never could.
that Kanda Pidasana where you bring the feet up.
Yeah.
That's the only one left I can do. Yeah.
That's from all of your years dancing. You got the strong ankles.
It's just I'm a hip swiveler.
Yeah, you've
That's
got
all
the open hips and the flexible ankles.
That's all I've got.
Kino said, when we were in Mysore, I think she said that she was told women shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm quoting her correctly, I think when we had coffee, were you with us when we had coffee with her? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the relentless sexism in India is something I'm still fascinated by.
Yeah, there's something about like it disrupts your ability to get pregnant or something. But
Sure it
I
does.
really don't
If
think
that
it's
worked, people would have done it.
yeah, I don't think it's a reliable birth control method. So
I also found out you don't eat papaya when we were there this trip. Did you know that before?
yeah.
No,
Also,
Saraswati said eat papaya and it regulates your menstrual system.
yeah, but you're not
Whatever.
supposed to eat it when you're pregnant.
Can't even get pregnant or you'll miscarry.
Sure it will.
Again, I don't
Sure.
think that's reliable science. I don't know. I just like throwing that out.
Not a reliable method of birth control.
No, papaya, definitely not.
Yeah. They would have posted that at the grocery store. This causes abortion.
Like it would come with a warning, I think.
You wouldn't be able to sell it in Oklahoma. I mean, it's like,
Right, that's true. It would be outlawed in most of this country now.
most states
At least that.
where none of the people live, it would be outlawed. Well, I'm interested in something that you said, and just to get to the heart of our inner wounds, you were dancing and went to yoga, and you discovered that there was a kind of yoke or unity to many different facets of your life. And I'd like to explore that a little bit about the kind of man that your dad was and what he was into. He's a remarkable writer as well. And then you started picking up books that he lent you. And I wonder if you could tell us more about that and how that kind of informed your decision to leave ballet, which I think must have been painful.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, my dad was an engineer by trade, so he's very analytical and even-tempered. If anyone watching who knows Chuck Miller, Chuck reminds me of my dad in temperament.
Yeah.
And he became my teacher, as I said. So he was an engineer by trade, but he was always fascinated with other cultures and specifically other religions. So he ended up writing a book called Everyone is Right. It's like a textbook. Well, I have it. I pulled it out because I've been rereading it.
Oh, wow.
Everyone is right.
That's huge.
A new look at comparative religion.
A new look at comparative religion and its relation to science. And the first part of it, he compares the main texts, put together the philosophies of Christianity, Taoism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. And then in the next section, he compares the Near East, so the Far East and Christianity. And it's just like a textbook, like he'll pick a subject and then he'll see what each scripture. So here's like control of the senses. And he'll tell you what these different religions say about it.
Oh,
Amazing.
oh, that's fascinating.
And then he compares Judaism and Islam, their texts. And then he gets into the esoterics, and then he gets into things like Kirlian photography. And I haven't read it in a long time, and I had pulled it out recently, which is probably why I had mentioned it to you when we were chatting about this.
Yeah.
Peterson, is that like a Lutheran name or a Scandinavian name?
He passed away
Yeah.
quite a while ago, but he is Swedish.
Ah.
It was Tetterson. Both his father and mother were immigrants from Sweden, and my mom is Irish, and her parents are immigrants from Ireland.
Wow.
He was the very even-tempered one. My mom, who is still alive at 91 and lives by herself, is much more volatile. So it was kind of a chaotic house in some ways because she was left to take care of the kids. And I think that's what made me gravitate towards ballet and dance, because you had rules and Ashtanga.
Yeah, exactly. There's some serious similarities there.
Yeah.
A lot of ballet dancers, when they get into yoga, get into Ashtanga, I've noticed.
Yeah, it's very like the discipline, the rules, the structure, the repetition, all of it just is like a kind of a mirror of each other.
And yet I think my dad gave me like the Tao Te Ching. He gave me the Bhagavad Gita because he was reading all these books and then ended up writing a book and comparing a lot of these texts. It was just something that was fascinating to him. And he was born Lutheran, I'm pretty sure, but my mom was Catholic. And I remember when he got baptized. I can't remember what age I was, but I have memory of him getting baptized. That was fully for my mom. But if you read his book, you can see that he viewed religion as an interesting set of beliefs that different peoples and different cultures have. And I think I follow in those footsteps. And I was definitely attracted to Far East philosophies like Buddhism and Taoism. They resonated with me. And you see that in the Yoga Sutras too, the teachings. So it kind of brought together my need for structure and to be in my physical body, coming from dance. And I'm talking about yoga and the philosophical beliefs, because they were constantly telling you to be present, you know? And Chuck was a great teacher for that. He would always say, when it becomes Ashtanga, a set of poses you have to get through, you're not doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And up until my mid-50s, I was loving doing like through fourth series. It was feeling good on my body. And then I started to get back pain. And anyone familiar with the fourth series knows you go from these extreme back bends to extreme forward bends. You go from scorpion pose to putting your foot behind your head with your arm over it in a forward bend. Literally, those two poses are next to each other. And my back was like, you can't do this the way you're doing. Intermediate series is much more forgiving. You do a string of back bends, then you do a string of forward bends.
Yeah.
But I guess at some point, your body is a rubber bandy, and it was for decades.
Yeah, you had decades of rubber bandies.
Now it's like I can still do a lot of those poses, but my practice is definitely listening to my body. And if I'm going to get into some of those deeper poses or arm balances, I'm not going to do that many in a row. And I'm going to warm up to the deep forward bends. So Chuck, I think, gave us permission to do that. Did you study with Chuck?
Yeah, we hosted him twice at our school in Victoria. And I just saw him recently, actually, earlier this year when I was in Lisbon. We had dinner together.
Oh, how nice. I haven't seen him in years. A few times he came out and did some workshops in Santa Monica, and I went down.
Yeah, it had been about 10 years since I'd seen him. So it was really nice.
You're tearing up a little bit.
No, it was just beautiful. He's so beautiful. And I love just the wisdom, the practical wisdom that he brings to the practice, right? Exactly what you said. If it's something that you're forcing yourself to do, or you feel like you have to do, or you're doing it mechanically without awareness, without presence and paying attention, then it's not really doing anything for you in a way.
You have to think, what is it for? What end result do you want?
Yeah.
That's interesting because I think I've really struggled with that for decades, is that I came out of American football and street basketball and a pretty heavy trauma history. And for every single time I did yoga, it was an experience of tolerating terror and suffering. And it was intense suffering from the first day to the very last class I did.
What was the suffering?
At any moment, I would go into contraction. I have
Like a back spasm.
back spasms, multiple bone spurs, and osteoarthritis in my back and compressed discs. But I had that when I was 19.
Boy.
And so I went into yoga thinking it would help me with my back, and I would manage it and keep things straight and keep things aligned. But every single practice was horrible.
But you must have felt good after. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep doing it.
Well, I
What was
needed
the
I needed
benefit?
to work out. I had a lot of energy and I needed to do something for a couple hours to get it out. But I would wake up paralyzed in fear of what I was about to do. And then I would do that horrified and terrified the whole time, cry at the end. And then I'd be done with it. And I would be so happy I didn't have to do it again for 22 hours. And then I would, do all of this other kind of passive stuff to prepare myself for the next time so that hopefully it'd be better. All that said, I feel a lot better now not doing it. And I feel like in my body, I feel good. I feel like I stretch a little bit and work out a little bit. It's just so interesting to me when I hear people say that everything went really swimmingly for a long time. And then I got into fourth series and I started to really knock my head against the wall with these forward bends and back bends. I was like, yeah, that's what it's
primary
like.
series for you.
In the first, that's what it's
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with Maya Heiss, who is a student of yours, that it's like some people hit it the first day. Some people have to do fourth series to experience what that is, that terror of your own pattern.
You just made me think of something I've said before. I feel like people say, why is Ashtanga yoga so hard? And I feel like it's so we will all reach our limit.
Yeah.
I don't know who doesn't reach a limit at some point.
That's so interesting. The reaching the limit, that's an interesting, juicy point. And like a key to what you're saying is, how do you recognize that limit? And how do you come to terms with that limit or make peace with the limit? Or do you know what I'm saying?
How do you deal with the difficulties, which is maybe the biggest lesson of all? And then at some point, you're going to not be able to do everything you're doing. And I think that's a beautiful lesson to learn. We have to learn that lesson to go through life without giving up completely. I don't mean giving up your practice, but just giving up on yourself. You have to get creative, find different ways around it. Maya came to me at Malibu Gym. That was the first place I taught in Malibu. And so that's 32 years ago or something. She just wandered in because she lived in Malibu. And I had just started Ashtanga. And I saw her practice. I saw her back bend. And I'm like, you got to try this. And I took her with me. I started with Monte, which we haven't talked that much about. But she was my first teacher. And back in the old days, originally when I started, the afternoon class was a lead class. So I started doing a lead primary series with Monte, and I brought Maya to that. And Monte saw that back bend. And first class, she could go back and grab her legs.
Yeah.
Once I had learned primary, Monte said, you have to go see Chuck. And because I was a single parent with a little kid, I didn't know how I could do that. But family helped me out. So I was able to get in a few times a week to practice with Chuck. Then Maya, of course, became a major devotee of Patabi Joyce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Russell, you said that you, for 30 years, did a program that Patabi Joyce gave you?
Oh, just the same one as everybody else. I'm sorry. Yeah, as prescribed.
As prescribed.
Yeah.
I
as
mean,
prescribed.
In the old days, like before it became so huge, Chuck told me when he was learning intermediate series, they added a fourth series pose, Padangustasana Dhanurasana, with the Dhanurasanas, and he let me do that. So it sounds as though back when there were 12 people in the room, Guruji was much more pliable with the way he gave poses. And Nancy Gilgoff talks about there being the 4 series and not doing vinyasa between a lot of the poses that we do. And of course, when it grew so much, I think they felt they had to solidify it and make it something.
When we arrived in 2003, 2004, that's what it looked like. Things were exploding. And they saw that it was chaos, and they said, we're just going to make everything the same so that we can control this room a little bit. Standardized, yeah. That's what it looked like.
But I think that's really interesting, that observation that when it was smaller and it wasn't a brand, let's say, it was more about teaching to the student that was in front of you. And so, yeah, if you can do Purna Dhanurasana, which is a 4 series pose, and it's in your body, why not do it? Wait until 4 series. If you're doing a sequence of Dhanurasanas and you can do the most difficult one, just do it. I know, like, even Trivikramasana, like we used to be in primary series.
Yeah, right after right after your Ekapada, you would like,
I mean, that's how we learned it
up,
too.
pull your foot up by your foot,
But then not so much anymore.
Yeah.
How did you make peace with like doing all of these beautiful advanced asanas, and then when your body starts to say no and you're becoming aware of it saying no, like this doesn't feel good anymore, how did you kind of make peace with it? Did it feel as gut-wrenching as leaving ballet? Was it a bit more malleable? Did you decide to do different types of asana? How did you kind of incorporate that?
Kind of more that I had a big life change. For one thing, I was teaching yoga and I wasn't teaching Ashtanga. I never led except traveling. When I travel for workshops, then I'll lead Mysore classes or a retreat. Probably because I was a single parent and I wanted to practice in the morning. I never wanted to lead a room. I did assist Chuck for years, like 1 day a week. So I was already teaching vinyasa flow. I think the dancer choreographer in me likes putting together sequencing. So I was already doing that. So it wasn't too traumatic to stop doing that. And also 11 years ago, I got this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
The dog.
hello. Hello, little doggy.
I had to walk her every morning. So I kind of took longer walks and did shorter practices. As Harmony knows, I still do a primary series practice weekly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of grounding and nice. And I have a nice little group of loyal folks who do it with me. But then on my own, I might do straight through intermediate series or I mix it up. Just learning to listen to my body.
Yeah. And giving yourself permission to be a bit more playful, to be a bit more curious and explore.
Yeah. And also I've taught for 30 years at a gym. It's a fitness center up in Malibu. Steve Ross used to teach there. Herb Sandoval taught there. They've had a lot of really interesting people teach there. And we get a lot of interesting people there. I had Sting in class there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Popped into Ashtanga.
The little gym for the rich and famous that no one knows about.
Yeah. So I started to take other classes, like dance classes. So I just explored doing different things because like Russell, I had to be doing something physical. Okay. That's, I think, what's hard for a lot of Ashtangis. If all you've done is these sequences, how do you modify it? I felt like I was being a bad person if I even skipped a vinyasa.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think people really struggle with that.
People struggle with that. I think having Chuck as my teacher helped a lot. And Monte, too. Monte would bring chairs and blocks and things into the asana room, because she was an Iyengar teacher first.
Yeah.
They were already a bit rebellious.
Yeah, they're more alternative in their approach to practice. I mean, I know Chuck said to me, the best yoga practice I ever gave myself was lying on a bolster with my legs up the wall. And I was like, mind blowing when he told me that like many years ago. But it was like such permission to really listen to what you need, listen to what your body needs in the moment. And Maddie, of course, I mean, she would just have you tied up in a rope and a strap with a block between your thighs before you even knew you were in a posture. So,
oh yeah. After I was working with Chuck all the time, occasionally I would pop into her afternoon class, which became a Mysore class. And she would either ignore me the whole class or I could barely get through anything. She'd say, Lauren, wait, shout across the room.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about Monte? It's interesting to me when someone passes someone off to someone else, because so often I think if Maya Heis were to walk into my room and you and I were teaching together, I'd probably claim her as my own. Like, that's my student. My student.
Because she's so flexible.
And that's,
she could gratify your ego as a teacher.
Exactly. Right. So like someone who passes someone off, like, oh, you should go with Chuck. I'm stunned that someone would pass someone off like that. And so what do you think she was thinking? Like, you needed Chuck. Why did you need Chuck more than her needing to keep you?
Well, it could just be practical because at that time, afternoon practice was lead primary.
Okay.
It wasn't my score. I think there were so many people and she felt like I was ready to start to go on to intermediate.
Right. Okay. And so then you needed to do that kind of class.
And I was like, oh, I have a baby. I don't know how to do this.
Right.
And, once he was in school, I could do that. Like my brother could take him to school. Fortunately, we've had a place together for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another who was big and also helped with that was Richard Freeman. Did you ever study with Richard?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did an advanced teacher training with Richard in Boulder, and he teaches so slowly. Chuck does too.
Yeah, I know.
And it's so deep. And yet he's the one who showed me those fifth series poses. Well, that was funny. They had once upon one year at a Yoga Journal conference in Colorado, they did an Ashtanga thing. And in the Mysore room in the morning were Chuck, Richard, Monte, Eddie Modestini, Nikki Duane.
Eddie.
Oh, wow.
There was one other person.
I love Nikki too.
Was Mary there?
Mary was at the conference, but they were leading the Mysore room in the morning. There were like 6 of them. Who else? Maybe Tim Muller. It was crazy. And at that conference, one day, Chuck just brought Richard over and said, Richard, show her what you know of fifth. She's ready.
Wow.
Oh, and Chuck had not done fifth.
No, he hadn't done it. And Richard was like, oh, I haven't done it in a while. And let me see if I can remember it.
Yeah. Piyandasana, then you do the splits, then there's a couple, handstands, looking your feet, then you do the on top of your hands and back around under your hands.
Right. I haven't done it myself in ages.
I practiced next to Mark Yao as he learned fifth in Mysore. And so I made drawings of all the poses he was doing.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in touch with Mark at one point, and he was very negative about yoga.
Yeah. He got kicked out of Guruji's pranayama class. and he kind of lost his way. He had said to Sharat that he didn't like how crazy the main shala was. It was like a cattle call, and it was intense. You're getting elbowed in the face as you're trying to get into practice in the morning so you can get your one spot, and you just had enough of it. So he went over to Sharat's class, which was more cool, 20 people in the room. You could not have to worry about all that craziness. And then Harmony and I were there together, and Guruji announced the pranayama class was up. And I think it may have been the year after us, because I think Nick and Guy were in the room, and they both told me the story.
Yeah.
He walked in, and Guruji shouted at him and said, "No free classes, get out." And he never came back.
I was there, though.
You were in the room?
I think it was after, because that was the last pranayama class that Pattabhi Joyce taught. He got sick after that.
Oh, yeah. So it was like a month later.
Yeah, maybe you'd left already.
Mark was invited or told he could go by Sharat, but then Guruji wouldn't let him in.
No, Sharat hated the idea that any of us could go to Guruji's pranayama class. He resented it. But once it was announced that there was pranayama, Mark had been going for years, so he just assumed
he could go
because he'd been going.
But you were going, Harmony. You guys were going?
We were there.
Because you had to be an advanced series to go.
Mark showed up because it had been announced, but he had taken another teacher.
He was in Sharat's class, not Pattabhi Joyce's class.
And we didn't even understand that amongst ourselves, that between the family members, if you're with Saraswati or Sharat or Pattabhi Joyce, they own you. They own you as students. I thought of them as a big, happy family.
Yeah.
No, they're in competition with each other for students, which we didn't understand. And Mark didn't understand that. So he walks into the room because he's been going to pranayama for ages, gets kicked the hell out, and said, screw Ashtanga Yoga. I'm not doing this anymore.
But I don't think it was just that. I mean,
He's also losing his mind.
I think it happens sometimes. You put all of your energy and time and attention, and you're making so many sacrifices. And I know Mark was making a lot of sacrifices, like drinking only cream and like liquid ibuprofen on the body and like doing all of this stuff to maintain these advanced asanas, which is basically like a contortionist practice every day. And then I think at some point you get to a place within yourself where you're like, why am I doing this? What is this all for? And especially if your whole focus has been on the asana, you're not getting enlightened doing asana, right? I mean, maybe the enlightenment is the breaking point of like, guess what? Actually, let's explore.
Give up all technique and come to Krishna.
So I think there was some of that going on where he had reached that limit that we've been talking about, and whether it's age and your body reaches that limit, or whether it's ambition and your ambition reaches a limit and just says, I don't give a shit anymore. It's the same kind of process, I think, of having to come to terms or start to do the inner work around what it all means and what you've devoted yourself to, and what was it all for? To me, that's when the yoga really starts, is when you start asking those questions, right?
Absolutely. And maybe coming into it a little older. I didn't get in young, and seeking something different than ballet. So when I was in New York, I remember the company dancers taping up their feet and getting acupuncture so they could perform, because it's all about how it looks on stage. Nothing else matters. And I was seeking something different than that. And fortunately, the teacher I was working with was saying what matters is how you feel the rest of the day. So it's interesting that Russell always felt bad.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it felt like when I did that primary series class, that first lead class, I was like, oh, I need to be doing this. Yeah. Because Vinyasa Flow, when I first went to some of those classes, like with Brian Kesta and such, I could do that pretty well. I was flexible. I could kick my leg up and stuff. But Ashtanga showed me all the places I was weak. Like I hated Chaturanga. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do Chaturanga. Yeah. So it was that. I need 30 years of this.
Yeah. My dad used to work on Brian Kest's mom's car. He's a mechanic in Detroit, and Brian's out of Detroit. And so his mom has some kind of car that my dad worked on for him. Just random connection.
Brian's another interesting one. There are so many interesting characters in the yoga world.
Yeah.
Brian used to teach at Yoga Works way back when. Then he started his power yoga thing.
Yeah.
And occasionally at one point I was teaching on a Sunday night at Yoga Works, and I would pop into his class before that, just work time-wise because it was down the street. And I don't know what it was. He didn't like me or something, but I remember we were doing Utthita Panicusthasana. We had the leg here, and he was walking around the room, and he hit my leg, and I wobbled and stood up again, and he hit my leg again. It was like, I didn't know what it was. He was anyway.
So funny. Quite a few characters. I mean, that's such a beautiful experience too that you had coming up in Yoga Works as it was like really coming into its own and blossoming, because so many incredible teachers came through Yoga Works, and it really was, I think, the model that most modern studios base their classes with, the boutique store and all of the things. Now it's all kind of based on the Yoga Works model. Before that, there wasn't really that type of yoga school.
Yeah. When I started, we had the one studio, well, two studios, but Montana Avenue, the one location, and then they opened Main Street. And I mean, on the schedule, I remember when Sean Korn first got hired, she was just before me. We were both teaching at Santa Monica Yoga. This is so long ago. And then but we were both practicing at Yoga Works. And Shiva was there, Shiva Ray and Rod Stryker and Steve Roth, Max Strom. I remember when Max got hired. I remember when Vinny Marino, do you know Vinny?
Yes.
So Vinny at one point taught at Malibu Gym. And I remember going to his class there, and there were like 3 people in class. And then he was practicing with Monte. I don't know if I should tell these stories. Oh, he doesn't. He wouldn't care. He was practicing with Monte, and he's like, "Oh, Monte's never going to hire me." And of course, he hired him, and he became very popular.
Yeah, he's super famous. He's like one of their most popular teachers ever.
He
so
has
funny.
a great wit, and he's so much fun. But yeah, I remember way back before.
Chuck always said that about Monte, is she had a skill or like a sixth sense about her that she could really pick out talent. She could really tell, oh, this person's going to be a great teacher, and she really just would handpick from the students that were coming.
She ran that whole side of the school. When she'd hire you, then she'd take your class. And at the end of class, she'd say like, "Lauren, we have to talk." And then she'd schedule you for a week from then. And all week you're like, "Oh God," And then she's like, "I don't know why you're doing Surya Namaskar C." Or you shouldn't have beginners sustain their breath. Or she'd take notes,
Yeah. Yeah.
What is Surya Namaskar C?
Oh, that's like stepping back. I remember one time I must have taught that. So you inhale up, you fold forward, step 1 foot back, go to down dog. You could do knees, chest, and chin up.
Oh.
Yeah, like that old style.
Shivananda style.
Oh, Shivananda style.
Yeah.
And you're calling that Surya Namaskar C. That's cool.
Tim Miller used to do a Surya Namaskara C, though. And that would just be kind of like what my practice is now, like a hybrid of Ashtanga series poses mixed together, basically vinyasa flow. He would call it Surya Namaskara C. I remember doing workshops with him. Did you ever take with him?
Yeah. Well, I hosted him too a couple of times. And he did also like a Ashtanga inspired class, I think, which is also like just a vinyasa class.
Yeah, what he would call Surya Namaskara C or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
People make it their own.
Yeah, I think it's nice to hear that people have been making it their own since the inception of the practice, and that allows to hold it loosely in a way, and to have some freedom, and to have a sense of playfulness about the practice and exploration. Because, as we've been talking, I think it really does help with coming to terms with your body as it ages, or coming to terms with the health issues, or having children, or reaching a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore in this way. It just gives you some sense that you can still be practicing Ashtanga yoga, and it doesn't have to be so strict in a way.
Can I show you something? I know we're on the radio, but this is something I made up I'm going to see. I've got my foot here. Okay. And so I would do, you know how you do Paschimottanasana A, B, C, and D?
Uh-huh.
I started teaching Paschimottanasana E. You put your fingers in between each of your toes, and then you bend forward from there.
I think it's great. I've noticed that, a lot of old people, their toes go in this way.
Yeah.
And I've been consciously like pulling them open. I remember chucking.
Oh, look at your beautiful feet.
I know.
Let me see that
Great
again.
feet.
Oh, you go right out. Oh, that's lovely. Look at that.
Chuck in Richard Freeman. I would call their feet gecko feet. Their toes were so spread that even when they were relaxed, there was space between their toes. And I think it's so important for people's feet. People don't pay. Look at that.
Yeah.
People don't pay attention to their feet.
I like to get a quietly spread.
True.
That's what I like to do. Really spread them out.
A lot of older people, their toes get all kind of crunched up on. And ballet dancers, I lucked out.
Yeah, you really did.
I would get these shoes made in San Francisco, and they would make a squarer toe if you had a square foot. And God, I can't remember what they are called, but I used to order them from San Francisco. They actually would make it for the shape of your foot, whereas most toe shoes are pretty standard, just a standard.
Yeah. Cram your foot into it, shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I told you I was like in my late 20s when I kind of discovered yoga, and I was thinking, what can I do for the rest of my life? Because my dancer friends were all injuring themselves. And because again, it's all what it looks like. I feel very fortunate that I transitioned at that time. Interestingly, I got into doing some acting and stuff years ago, did a lot of TV commercials, and got back into the acting business after taking time off to raise my son. And then I booked a bunch of dance jobs.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, well, you're dancing again, Lauren. So it came full circle.
Yeah, I booked the TV show Transparent as a dancer for the finale.
You were in that show?
I was in the finale. They did 4 seasons.
After Tambor.
Yeah, they came back and they did a musical. And I'm one of Judith Light's little posse. We were the Bubbies.
I didn't see it. I'll go back and see that.
It's on Amazon.
Wow.
And then I did a bunch of music videos, And then about 2 years ago on August 3rd, I was shooting a music video and they put me in these platform tennis shoes and I was gam and I was just doing a big kick and I had already done like a handstand splits and splits on the floor and all this. And I did this big kick and I fell off my tennis shoe and tore my ACL.
Oh.
No. Oh, no.
So 2021, September, I injured it. I did a lot of rehab and finally decided to get a replacement. And now it's 2 years. It's good. It's really good now.
Wow.
Yeah.
But then I had to relearn, like I couldn't push up to upward bow or Dvidanurasana. I couldn't stand up from a back bend. I didn't know if I'd ever do that stuff again at 65 years old. And now I'm doing all that stuff again. So it's a never ending journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And my surgeon is like, well, we usually see this injury in like teenagers and 20-year-olds.
I dislocated both femurs.
Oh, God.
I dislocated my right femur going forward. Excuse me. Someone else dislocated it. I was just there. And then the left one went the opposite way, where the femur came out of the socket the other way.
It came out of the hip?
Yeah.
So did you tear up your hip flexor and the psoas?
The total, what's that word called when you have the complete separation of the
The avulsion.
avulsion? I had a
of the
total
hamstring.
avulsion of the hamstring. 100%. Oh, yeah. I told the story before, but I was in a class and Rachel down in Houston pointed it out. I said, what happened there? Because all of your muscles are bunching up. No, she told you about it later. All of his muscles are bunching up on his calf. Does he have a hamstring tear or something? Yeah, it was bad.
American football is dangerous.
I loved it. I loved
It's very
hitting people.
dangerous.
I loved it so much. It was the first time in my life, I think, that I'd experienced joy.
What position did you play?
I started out as linebacker, which I loved. I did a little defensive end because I was quick, but then everybody hit puberty except me. I'd already hit puberty. So then everybody else caught up. So then they switched me to offense, which I hated. I hated being on offense because I really, really liked was hitting people. And so then I played wide receiver.
You're not a large person.
But I'm super fast and I can jump out of the gym. If I could hold it in my hand, I could jam it in a basketball rim. But a basketball is a little bit too big for my hands. But like a volleyball, I can jam a volleyball. I was a jumper and I was quick. So in Louisiana, I played Class 5A high school football as a wide receiver. And that's when I got my hip dislocated.
Then no more football.
No more football. Some boy that was going to go to college and be like a real football player, he hit me hard.
Oof.
Yeah.
Did you see that film Concussion?
I've heard about it.
Is that the one with Will?
With Will Smith, yeah.
Yeah, that was great. That was really, really good.
It's very good.
They did all kinds of work on the study of the amygdala and how football players have such a big amygdala and ladies like you have such a thin amygdala because you do all this work pacifying your universe.
Our aggression.
Your aggression. It's really good for you.
Yeah, but like football players and veterans.
Yeah, they end up with all the...
They find this brain damage.
Yeah.
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 They changed some of the rules in the football league due to that.
It doesn't
a little
do
bit.
It does. You need to outlaw. If you really want to do anything about concussions and CTE, you need to outlaw the sport. Don't fuck around.
But they won't.
You got to outlaw hockey, and no one's going to outlaw hockey. They still punch each other in the face in hockey. And so they don't allow football players to do that, which is absurd, given how hard they hit each other in the face. So you got to outlaw hockey, boxing, football. If you're really serious about it,
for sure,
you have to outlaw the sports. It's a total hypocrisy. And, you're trying to save face for your advertisers, and that's it. And it's ridiculous. It's not safe to play those sports. You can't make them safe.
Yoga's much safer.
Barely.
less concussions.
Can you, before we finish up, can you tell us how you ended up on the Ellen DeGeneres show? How did that happen?
So I had some videos on YouTube doing a scorpion pose. Actually, they had emailed me and it went into junk. And I didn't see it. And then somehow I saw it when I was cleaning up trash and I wrote them back and they're like, oh, okay. And I gave them a phone number and then didn't hear anything. I'm like, oh, well, blew that. Didn't know what they wanted me to do, but they were interested in something. So then I get a phone call from a producer and they're like, can you put glasses on with your feet? That's what they asked me. I didn't know what they meant. So I picked up the glasses like this and I put them on with my feet. And they're like, no, in a back bend.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out even how to pick up the glasses so they'd be in the right position. Then I played around with a hat. So I realized I could pick up a straw hat. I had this gardening hat and go into a back bend and put on my head in scorpion pose. So I said, I don't know about the glasses, but I can do a hat. And so I had my friend film it and sent it to them. And then they wrote back, they said, we love it. We're going to show it to the high top producers. And then they're like, we love it. You're filming it was like tomorrow or something.
Oh my gosh.
And so then I go in, it was a Thursday. I remember that. And they bring you in at like 8 a.m. They film the show at like 3 p.m. or something, but you do a rehearsal with a producer. You don't meet Ellen until you're on the show. So the segment was something called like Our Talented Audience. And then they plant you in the audience.
Oh, it's all bullshit. Yeah, okay. That's awesome.
They found us all on YouTube.
Yeah.
They had a BMX bike rider on our show and this guy who could sing in 2 different octaves. So he did a duet of A Whole New World with himself. He was great. I can't remember his name, Nick something. And then I checked him out after he had a whole bunch of videos where he was doing that. He can sing all these Disney songs.
Wow.
In 2 parts, the female and the male.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
No, wait, I haven't seen the video. So you can watch this video. You can Google it. You're sitting in the audience and then Ellen, does she call you out and you go up to the stage?
Yeah.
That must be terrifying, that part. So you walk down to the stage and then you're standing right next to the 2 couches and they got the TV screen behind you. And then she says, do it. What does she say?
She says, Lauren Peterson is Lauren Peterson here. And you go down. So in the studio, if you've seen, I don't think she has her show anymore, right? But there's an open space where they would have a band perform if they had a band on. The couches are on one side. So she's kind of over there. But she interviews you, asks you a couple of things. And I remember she said, so what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to put a hat on my head. And she's like, okay, because you're supposed to do something weird. And then I say, with my feet. And then she's like, okay. And then I did the trick.
And Scorpion.
And so you stand up from the couch and then you just go into a handstand?
Oh, but I never sat on the couch. So we were standing up and they had my hat backstage. So she has this guy bring out the hat. He runs out and they give me the hat. And then she goes over to the couch. You can see her in certain angles in the background, like watching. And, and I put the hat on the floor and I stand on the hat and I bend over and I put my hands down. And then I, squeezing the hat with my feet, I pick it up and then I go into a back bend and I put the hat on my head and land.
That's so funny.
I was really nervous because even though they film it ahead of time, it runs live. They're not cutting.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I got there and I wavered and I went like this. And then I dropped it on my head. Whereas at that time, I could have put it on and tapped it with my feet. So then I made a video of me doing it like all these different ways.
That's so funny.
And so you're in Vrishikasana and then the feet come back over and around, back into a forward bend, and then you stand up.
Let me see. I landed in Urdhva Dhanurasana.
Oh, you landed in Urdhva, but how did you keep the hat on your head?
I might have just put my hand on the head and stood up.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I would have been shaken. I would have been shaken so much. Oh, man.
Did they ask you like what you did for a living?
Yeah. She asked that. She's like, they asked you like, where do you live? And what do you do? I teach yoga.
Did you get any clients from it?
No, I don't think so.
Did you say that you were a yoga teacher? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I think I was a yoga teacher because I was. That's all I was doing at that point. It was fun.
Yeah.
I had to do yoga in front of Tim once at the Joyce yoga thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was shaking and sweating buckets and there wasn't even a TV in the room. He was like in the audience to watch us. We did a yoga demo and I was shaking like a leaf.
We did Ashtanga demo at Yoga Works. Second series, intermediate series.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool. It was like Brent Kessel. He was the other person at our studio that went through fourth with Chuck.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
He's amazing. Brent, who was in that demo? Lisa Walford
Yeah.
was in that demo. Nancy Goodstein, Noel Maremount, Monte was one of them. Chuck called it out.
Oh, wow.
One and only time my parents saw me do yoga. I was so surprised they actually showed up. They were opening Main Street, their second yoga studio, and they had like a party and they did a yoga demo. Raphael was in there. That video is floating around out there somewhere too. I think there's a video of us doing intermediate series on YouTube.
That's awesome.
Amazing. That's incredible. All the history, all the yoga history that before Instagram, before all the social media, people were still doing demos and things were happening.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've seen the one with Patabi Joyce with Chuck and Monte and
Yeah.
Yeah, the Yoga Works video.
Yeah, that was homework. That was self-study for us. Instead of reading the sutras, we'd watch that video.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'll tell you, my first introduction to Ashtanga Yoga, it was probably VHS tape or maybe a DVD. It was Richard Freeman doing primary series.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was kind of teaching myself. I hadn't done much. I know my baby was really little. I started doing it with him. Did a few sun salutations. And then at some point, I just sat down and watched him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was before I had gone to Monte. When he got to like Marichiyasana D, I was like, are you kidding?
Exactly.
That was my first impression. And then Raphael, do you know Raphael?
I don't think I know him.
You might not. He didn't teach. He never taught. He was a student, but maybe he taught. Anyway, back in the day, I was teaching at Santa Monica Yoga. This was before I taught at Yoga Works. And he's like, oh, this teacher's coming into town. You have to do this workshop with us. It was an Ashtanga workshop. Raphael was the one that just reminded me who was telling me I should do Ashtanga. He brought me in, I think it was Tim Miller, and it was an intermediate series workshop. I'd never done Ashtanga. Maybe I'd seen Richard Freeman's.
Yeah, wow.
Korn and Shiva were in that class, all these beautiful practitioners. And I just remember like attempting to get through it.
Yeah, you're just like in the back, checking it out.
It was the 2 rows, the traditional 2 rows facing each other. So it was, right.
No hiding. Oh, wow.
Yeah, the only reason I went to the intermediate series class was because I was teaching yoga at like the YMCA.
Yeah.
I had no right to be teaching yoga. So that's a funny story. I was taking yoga in Malibu at Malibu Gym, and I was taken from Herb Sandoval at Malibu Fitness, the place that I still teach at. And I was teaching kids dance. I think Herb at one point was leaving, wasn't going to drive out to Malibu anymore to teach. And he's told her, well, you should just let Lauren teach. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was like taught from books and tapes and stuff.
Yeah.
One of my first tapes was Lilias Folan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's Russell's first teacher too.
Lily's not my first teacher, but
on the TV.
when I was in high school in New Orleans, down in Louisiana, I would come home after school. Lily's Folan would be on the TV, and she'd be teaching us Baddha Konasana, and I would do it with her and try and do all the stuff. You wouldn't think like a football player, meathead, I was smoking dope, whatever, but you wouldn't think that kid would go home after football practice and watch Lily's Folan on TV. I just really liked her. I thought she was cool. I wasn't like sexually excited by her or anything. I just thought she was cool.
She was cool. The very first yoga for me, I was at this seminar. So my parents were into Edgar Cayce teachings back in the day. And there's a group called ARE, Association for Research and Enlightenment, that they were in. And they would do a lot of metaphysical type things. And we would go with them sometimes. And this woman had posted on a community board, I'm going to do yoga in yurt number 6, whatever, if you want to join me. And I was the only one who showed up. And she was just following a cassette tape. So we did it together. I did it with her every morning. I was the only one that showed up.
Wow.
This is my first introduction to yoga. I was probably about 28, 29.
No, I'm sorry. I've lost the plot a little bit. Are you with Lilias herself in a yurt by yourself?
No.
Okay. This is very first exposure to yoga at all.
Okay.
So at the end of that week, this woman who I don't know who was gave me a copy of the cassette tape. I don't know who it was on the cassette tape, but I kept doing that cassette tape. Then I got a job going to Japan, probably that job I was mentioning before where we did the TV show. And I would play that cassette tape in my room and do my yoga practice. It just felt good. Then when I got back, my mom had 2 VHS tapes of Lilias Folan, which she never used. And I borrowed them permanently and started to do them. And then I started to take these classes in Malibu. And that's when I started to get to teach. So because of the dance background, I kind of looked like I knew what I was doing, but I realized I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I don't know if you know Herb Sandoval. He's an Iyengar teacher, but he's very dedicated. And when I was his student, he would make me go with him to all these workshops at Yoga Works, all the Iyengar teachers. At one point, Kofi Busia, we were in a workshop with him, and we were going to do a headstand. And I started to go to the wall, take my mat to the wall. And he's like, no, you, center. I'd never done a headstand in the center of the room. And we proceeded to hold it for like 10 minutes. And because I'm like really stubborn and a Taurus, I did. I'm like, I guess I can hold a headstand. But I was also teaching at that time. And that's when I made the decision to give up teaching the dance kids and study at Yoga Works. And that's when my life kind of switched to Monte. I did teacher training with Monte and Lisa Walford. This was before like there were teacher trainings everywhere, And then I started to practice Ashtanga following that. It was a journey, but it was originally a lot of self-taught. I would go to the library and get books. I would do the Bikram class on my own at home with an infant.
Yo.
Wow.
Wow.
I was doing those 26 poses. I had Raquel Welch's VHS tape it too, which is the Bikram class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember hearing that Shirley MacLaine had got Bikram a visa from President Nixon to come and stay in her home. So he lived in her home and taught Bikram out of her house. So wouldn't surprise me if Raquel Welch was into it and all of her other friends.
In the Bikram book that I had, they had a lot of celebrities in there in pictures.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of celebrities at one point.
Yeah. And 4 rolls of roses.
I've done yoga with Shirley, and she's just really cool.
You've done yoga with Shirley? Like the two?
Like, she's taken with me.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's amazing.
Shirley MacLaine. Wow.
I've done yoga with Cher for years.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, a few years ago, I was getting Cher into Ashtanga.
Mm-hmm.
Probably about 20 years ago. This was when she was not going to tour anymore. Haha.
Right.
And he had done Believe. And that's when we started to really work together. And she loved to invite a bunch of friends to do yoga with her. And Shirley came. I mean, John McEnroe came only because his wife, Patti Smith, dragged him in once. He did not like it. A bunch of people would join her. And then she went on tour again, and we kind of lost. And now I'm still doing it with her. But it's very different. You know, it's been 20 years on and off that we've done stuff together. So a lot of people would pass through those doors. So I had another client in Malibu who, this is kind of funny.
Well, can I stop you? You'd go to their home and teach, wouldn't you? They wouldn't come to you.
No, I would go to there, except Sting came to our class. And we've had a few people come in to drop into class at the gym. Matthew McConaughey, when he was in Malibu, was there all the time, not in my class, in the gym side. And just nicest guy. Like, he would come in the afternoon right after I teach. So about noon, when it's really quiet and there's mostly like older folks, and he would talk to all the old guys about football and stuff. I've seen Robert De Niro in there. I've seen Janet Jackson in there.
Wow.
Janet Jackson was the only person I ever saw with bodyguards. Pierce Brosnan's all the time. I've done yoga with him. It's Malibu.
It's Malibu. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I was at a Joyce Yoga opening in Greenwich, and Sting walked in with Trudy. And I looked over and I looked at him and we made eye contact just as far away as you and I are. And I like, oh, it's Sting. And he looked at me with such contempt for recognizing him. Like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the look on his face.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. So they walked in, Sting and Trudy came in with this other woman who knows everybody, this Malibu socialite person who I did a lot of yoga with over the many years. He introduced himself. He was very nice. And Trudy. And then it was a led Ashtanga class. And I stood in front of the class, and I've done the chant hundreds of times. And I suddenly got in my head that I was going to sing in front of Sting.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Perfect pitch Sting.
And all this saliva formed in my throat. Like, that's never happened before. And I was like, do I swallow or not? I don't know how I got through the bloody chant. That was the scariest part. Once we were doing asana, I was fine. I was adjusting.
Yeah, but singing in front of Sting.
And I'm not a singer.
Yeah.
You're like, oh dear. I'm not sure how this is going to go.
Yeah. But they were very nice. I worked with Trudy at their house that they had in Malibu. And then I got to go to a retreat at their house in Tuscany that Chuck and Monte ran. It's not a house, it's a villa with a huge organic garden. And Trudy runs these retreats. She was at that point. I think now they rent it out for events and stuff when they're not there.
Incredible.
I think I interrupted you. You were going to tell us a different story about.
Well, it's just another kind of Malibu thing. So this same woman that brought Sting and Trudy to class, I did a lot of privates with her over the years, and she knows everybody. And at one point I ran into her and we hadn't done them in a while. She's like, oh, I would love to do a private with you. I'm like, okay. And we talk and we set a date. And she says, you remember the house, right? It's at the end of blah, blah street. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember. So I drive down that street and I go to the last house and I pull up to the gate. They're all kind of ranch style houses. And I push the button and a voice says, yes. And I say, I'm here to do yoga. Okay. They open a gate and I drive in and I park. And normally at her house, I would go right to the gym, which is down a little hill, a separate building. But this person answers the door who was probably working for them and said, oh, she's not here. She's picking up her son. Come in. And I'd been in this person's house, but not a lot. So I go in, I sit down, and I see all these kids' toys. And I'm like, that's odd, because her kids were closer to my son's age. The person I was going to had 2 boys. And I might thought, oh, maybe she has nieces, nephews, you know. And then I hear a voice that says, whose car is that? And in walks Julia Roberts, and she's carrying her son. Now, I still think I'm in the right place. So I say, oh, hi, I'm Lauren. You know, I'm here to do yoga. And I think she's arriving to do yoga. And she's like, who are you supposed to be seeing? And I told her the name, and she says, happens all the time. Second house past the ugly brown one. I had pulled up at the wrong house.
You went into Julia Roberts by accident. And she just lets anybody in, evidently. Come on in.
I'm sure that she had a talk with the person who buzzed me in and
wow. Please stop letting Charles Manson in my house.
drive like a tiny electric car and say you're there to teach yoga and you can fool anybody.
You can
moral of the
indeed.
story.
That's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to drive around Calgary. I'm just let myself into any place. So I'm here for the yoga.
It seemed a believable story.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's been such a joy to talk with you. I feel like you've got probably 10,000 more of these stories. I would love to hear all of them. What are you doing now? Do you even accept students? I don't even know. Maybe it's too hard to get into your class.
Oh, no. Well, anybody can come to my classes at Malibu Fitness.
We're all going to be there.
Evidently, anybody can just go into anyone else's home at any time. So you can find Lauren.
As long as you got the right buzzer code.
That's right. Yeah, MalibuFitness.com is where my public classes are. And I teach there part of the week. And then private clients, I just figure it out one-on-one. But I would love to promote an upcoming Yoga Gives Back retreat. So Harmony and I went to India together, which we didn't even get into all that.
I know.
For Yoga Gives Back. We're both huge supporters of the organization that Kayoko started. So this is her charity retreat in Nagano, which is where Kayoko has a home.
Where they have the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's going to be November 27th through the 29th. Exchange rates are great now for us in Japan, for US dollars anyway. I did it last year. It's a beautiful retreat. So that you can find probably at Yoga Gives Back. If you are on Instagram, definitely look there. And I've been posting about it on my Instagram. My Instagram is Lauren Peterson, one word, OHLAURENPETERSON. I'm going to be teaching at the Akula Yoga Festival, August 16th to the 18th. And while I'm in Japan, I'm going to be teaching at Yoga Fest, September 22nd. And I might be doing a class with Jaff, who was at another Yoga Gives Back event. And I believe Joss and Donna Delory are going to be at the Nagano retreat.
Nice.
So that's going to be super fun.
Beautiful. You'll be in Japan for about a month then.
I'm going to be in Japan for 3 weeks. So the first weekend I'll do Yoga Fest. Then I do the Nagano retreat. Then I have a workshop in Nagoya. And then I'm doing a retreat in Okinawa.
Wow.
I have a big history with Japan. So
yeah. And it's continued on from dance to yoga.
Oh, Lauren.
And your son, your grandson.
My son is living outside Tokyo. So this is really just an excuse to go see him.
Yes.
Your son lives in Japan. Oh, that's cool. Oh, Lauren Peterson. I'm now one of your followers.
Excellent.
Beautiful. So people can find out all about the Yoga Gives Back retreat and all of your other workshops and retreats happening in Asia.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook too, not as active, but I do repost things from Yoga Gives Back on there when I think about it. So, and that you can find Lauren Peterson, but I think it's like Yogi Lauren, like that Facebook/Yogi Lauren. I think you can find me because there's probably a lot of Lauren Petersons there.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. And people can come take classes with you online too.
I do have Zoom classes online, and they're all donation-based. I started a program volunteering at the Trans Lounge at the LA LGBT Center. I was teaching yoga there. And when everything shut down, we kind of moved to Zoom, but the classes are open to everybody. But I'm saying that because I like to offer free yoga for those who can't afford it. As we know, yoga can be expensive. The beautiful thing is that my clients from Malibu who opt to take it at home pay me. And then those who can't, they
get the benefits.
Share their beautiful spirits with us. So I have an email list, and I will send you the Zoom link. And the best thing to do is just DM me and give me your email, and I'll add you to that list if you want to join on Zoom. We have 4 classes. We do have one led Ashtanga that Harmony's done. I have a restorative class called Friday Night Chill. Guess when it is?
Friday night.
a basic class, and then we have kind of a flow, something for everybody.
I'm going to make it to some of your other classes one of these days. It just seems like always Wednesdays and Saturdays. I'm always busy.
Yeah, I understand.
Mondays is a good day for me, usually.
I love it when you pop in, Harmony.
I'm going to pop back in. I got to get back on it. Now that I'm here again in Calgary, I was traveling and it was impossible.
When the whole lockdown happened, then I started to get like friends from back east popping into the Zoom classes. And then I have other yoga teachers who I haven't seen, who I used to teach with, pop in, and like Deirbla and Jeannie Hellman come in. It's so nice to stay connected with people. That was one silver lining about what we went through, in 2020. And
totally new connections, new communities, and rekindling of old connections.
Absolutely. And being able to offer to a wider, demographic of people. It's really nice. I always wanted to be able to do that. I liked when Brian started the kind of donation model. It's worked out. It's nice.
Yeah. Well, you are a blessing to me in my life. So thank you. And
me too.
I know you'll be a blessing to all of our listeners too. It's so wonderful to connect with you and share your stories.
Yeah. Well, I hope some of you can make it to Japan. We've got a few slots left. And the wonderful thing is that you're doing something great for you, and they're benefiting Yoga Gives Back, which please check out Yoga Gives Back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an incredible charity organization for sure. And we'll put links to Yoga Gives Back in the show notes too, so people can.
That would be fantastic.
Donate as well, and also look up the retreat. So,
yes,
all the info will be there.
Wherever you are, they have like events happening all over the world.
Yeah. Also, openings for ambassadors too. So if you're a yoga teacher listening and you want to support Yoga Gives Back and offer donation classes, you can apply.
Yeah, we had a very special trip earlier this year, Harmony and I, and it's such a worthwhile cause.
Yeah. Incredible. So thank you so much, Lauren. I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Yes, you too. And Russell, so lovely to meet you. It was
nice
fun
to meet you, Lauren.
That was just so amazing. What a fun conversation. I learned so much, and I hope you did too. If you would love to go deeper and take your practice off your yoga mat and into your life, into the world, starting to learn more about pranayama, developing a regular practice, chanting, tuning into the vibrations and the Sanskrit mantras, as well as looking at some of the more esoteric philosophical concepts, come on in to my Inner Circle mentorship. This is a private community that's online. I offer weekly Mysore classes in addition to these monthly workshops and special programs. And you can find out all the information when you join the Finding Harmony community. Head on over to community-harmonyslater.com. Join the community and come on into my Inner Circle mentorship. I would love for you to be a part of this beautiful space and start growing into the full richness of this yoga practice together with me. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.